Hi, everybody. It's Nancy Reyes with For Your Canine.
And Joanne Soike with For Better For Worse.
Lisa Pataska with Canine Defined.
Tonight, we're going to talk about a little bit delicate subject.
I told you.
Yeah, a little bit of a delicate subject. Uh, I know we get a lot of calls, and I don't know if Joanne and Lisa do, about people looking for board and trains to leave. Basically, what that means is you would leave your dog for several weeks at the facility, and they train the dog for you, and then you get it back, and they usually include private lessons or things like that. And also, this is also encompassing daycares and boarding kennels, right? So we are some of our clients have had to use boarding kennels, and they've had no choice. But we do the bigger they're all everything's concerning, but the big one is the board and trains. We and I don't know, Lisa and I were working together. This was a long time ago. We had a lovely Doberman come in as a young puppy, did puppy classes, and then the handler owners decided to send him to a board and train um, facility, and unfortunately, the dog came back. When I saw him again, he was a completely different dog, and so much so that he was so unpredictable that um, there was not much we could do to help. So the dog was euthanized at 2 years old. So because it was so unpredictable with people because of the treatment he got at the boarding facility. Anyway, so, and we're not saying they're all bad, and we're not saying that they're all abusive, but do your homework, right? I think a lot of the reasons people use um, those those places is because they don't want to do the work. They don't want to take the time to do it, and they don't want to um, be. It's hard to make sure your dog is trained and all that. So they just seem to find it so much easier to send your dog. It's like sending your child off to boarding school. There's people who do that, right?
Well, I'll even give some people the benefit of the doubt, right? Like they don't know better. And most board and trains promise 30 days and we'll fix it, or 2 weeks and we'll fix it. Like it's a promise, it's a guarantee on their thing, right? So I think when people are at their wits' end of like, I went to Petco and took a class. And don't get me wrong, maybe there's some fantastic trainers at Petco, but it's just the ones that I'm used to around here. We'll teach you how to sit down, come and stay, and that's it. They don't deal really with behavior. But they've been through a couple of trainers and nobody can help them. And then you see this advertisement for bring us your dog. We deal with everything. We will fix it or your money back. Nobody says money back, but right, we'll fix it for you, guaranteed. So it's hard. And
Yeah.
Well, what in life is guaranteed? Like, and
yeah, that's exactly
I
right.
don't think I understand. Like, what in life is guaranteed? Like, I have nothing in my life that is guaranteed. It's not guaranteed I'm going to wake up tomorrow. And then on top of that, it's like, well, they're sentient beings. Like, there is so much more to raising a dog that is so much more complex.
Mhm.
It requires so much more about relationship building and so forth. I don't know any relationship that is so hard and fast. I just don't. And I love dogs, but I will not guarantee that
Right.
I can teach them certain things if you cannot follow through with certain things, right?
Yep. Well, Lisa, because Lisa does day training, as do I, at our training facilities. I We don't guarantee that the dog's going to, um, you know, come.
Perform any behavior,
Yeah, right.
right?
And unless they're willing to do the work and all that, and we always ask them, and we actually, as you get more into this business, you definitely get more having them more accountable. So we send them what we did on that day, and we send them what we covered, and then we ask them, did you work on it? So every week they have to be accountable to, did you do it? And then they understand that, you know, if you don't do the work, we can do so much, and we can get them started. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to incorporate it into your life outside of what we do. So yeah, I think right, Lisa, because there's no way to guarantee if they're not going to do the work, you can't do it.
Well, and I think this is the thing that makes me insane is, I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm very passionate about it. It's like, I, there's nothing in life that is guaranteed. I am so particular about like my dogs doing certain things. However, if, and I can provide you with the information, but at the same time, if you're not going to follow through,
Right.
it's very difficult to guarantee anything. Even anybody who does any kind of training, it doesn't matter. Like um, the oh, we do, if you do this, like even shot collar training, uh, any kind of pressure collar training, the dogs have to be. You have to be able to follow through with what they say to be okay with it. And the other thing too is like I believe in choice. Like when 2020 hit, we all had choices, right? We
Hmm.
had choices to like decide, is this okay? Do we want this, blah, 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 whatever and stuff. And we all had choices to make. But our choices were limited. And that being the case, it became very relevant the fact that choice and freedom of choice was a thing. It's not
Right.
just a thing for us, it's a thing for dogs, right?
Right.
And
Because they're
like,
technically captive animals,
yeah,
really.
they are absolutely
Yep.
captive animals. Like we open the doors for them to let them to go out and have life,
Hmm.
right? And that's the thing, like we don't understand that or really appreciate that particular piece of it.
Right. And so Deb Plowman asked about what percentage of people actually do what you say. I'm going to guesstimate. Um, so, and Deb, I'm gonna kind of get picky. Are people who are dog enthusiasts that um
Bless
work with their dogs, that do dog sports and all that stuff. I
you.
would
There's a higher
say
percentage.
about for those folks, they actually do what you say about, I don't know, about 60% of the time, right?
Yep.
They're pretty good about it. They've especially if they've had results with your training, they will continue to, and then that percentage gets higher as the more success they have. Now, for the pet owning population, and we need private lessons and puppy and all those, I would say for me, I want to say it's maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15% of them do what you tell them. Maybe. What do you think?
See, now I would say it's a rolling scale, right? So, right, it's 80% on the first week. And then if it's not perfect and it gets really hard,
Yes.
right? Because I think a lot of especially with private training, right? People pay a lot of money to help fix a problem or to and then, they're going to spend an hour with you and put the time in. And so they're excited. They're going to go home like, finally, we got a way to fix this. And then they're like, this is boring and this is hard and
Yes.
right. And I didn't realize it was going to take so long. So,
Yeah.
and that's where I think the truly committed people, which is a
Kids,
much
right?
smaller, yeah,
Yeah.
the truly committed people is a much smaller percentage and they will
Yeah.
stick it with it a little longer. But it's sort of like working out, right? I mean, many
Yes.
times you started that program and you're like, this is hard and I'm busy and I don't feel like it today. Right. And it's real easy to not do the things.
Right. What would you say? Oh goodness.
Bless
Thank you. Oh my God.
Yeah, I guess it's really frustrating. I'm not gonna lie, and it's saddening. It's disheartening at times, because of what I do and where I'm at. I don't deal with like when I was in Illinois, it was very different. There was much more opportunity to like provide more for people and so forth. And like at Fort Canaan, we did a lot more. So we provided more. There was more variety. And as a trainer, it was more rewarding.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, here I am now, it's different. It's like I enjoy working with dogs, but at the same time, it's very particular about the people I work with. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, and,
But
and
you're
I'm
more
very
rural
clear.
now, right?
What's that?
You're more rural now.
Yes, and it's different. There's a different mentality to it. Like,
Mm.
and in a way, it's sad to me because it's like dogs are not just dogs, they provide so much more. Today, like, so I had dogs that I was watching, and I provide as much as I can for the dogs. And then they went home, and then I dealt with my own dogs, and it was so much more. I don't know. It's different. It's like we have a good relationship, me and my dogs, all of them. We like did some like patience or, stand for like um oh my goodness, like we tried to do like stand for patience,
Yeah.
to like work on like 2 feet on something and so forth for canine fitness. And then we did different things. I pulled different dogs out and stuff like that, and I have to tell you, I enjoyed it. It was something that I really enjoyed, interacting with my dogs. But not everybody is that way. They want a quick fix, and it's very in my area, it seems like it's very disheartening at times. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna
Well, they
lie.
want a lot of quick fixes here too.
Yeah,
Same.
yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, and that's why we're also finding. I don't know if it's true. A lot of people get dogs, and they tend to have in home dog trainers, which is fine. But for a puppy, I find that very concerning, right? Because the puppies then are not getting the interactions and the exposure they need at the right time. So I would say if you're having a behavior problem, okay, probably definitely be all right. But more and more people are getting puppies and they're getting in-home training, and then the puppies go out into the world and they can't handle it, when they're older. And it's sad that the trainers aren't mentioning that part, that they have to go out and let them out and go. And that's the purpose of group classes. It's not that the dogs can't learn; it's that the dog should be able to work around other dogs from an early age. And then eventually it's not as necessary, right?
Yeah. Well, and coming back to the topic at hand, right? What do a lot of people use for socialization? Send the dogs to daycare.
Yep. Yes. Yep.
And a lot of people do it, and they feel like, at least from the people that I've talked to, right? They feel like it's enriching. It's healthy for the
Yes.
dog. It's a really good experience. The dogs come home really tired. And this topic is near and dear to my heart because I think, again, a lot of people watching us, to be careful. You've seen a lot of things that are out there, but pet people who maybe it's your first dog, or maybe you're just getting into training and you don't really understand what, good training versus bad training is.
Right.
I mean, the things that's just horror stories. And I'll tell you, Illinois anymore doesn't have a law. Right. So I know of daycares, they got 70 dogs running around and 2 people. Right.
Yeah.
And who are those 2 people? High school kids that are working for the summer. They don't
Right.
have experience with dog behavior. They don't know when a fight's going to start. And it's hot. It's somebody gave this analogy a while ago, and it was like, imagine if you sent your 2-year-old to daycare and they're like, we don't believe in naps. We want to send them home really tired for you. We're gonna stimulate them all day long, and then good luck to you when we send them home, right? And I think sometimes for pet parents, it's like, yeah, it's awesome. The dog just sleeps the whole night, doesn't wake up till the next day, and it's like,
Yeah, but what are they learning? What's the quality?
Right.
And how do you enjoy your dog if they're sleeping?
Right.
Well, and the thing is, when we were doing daycare, because we used to do daycare at our place, there was a lot of people that didn't want to come to our daycare because we were very honest. They spent time in the crate. We had smaller play groups. They were, walked, whatever, and the smaller, they spent time in the crate. People actually did not want them to come if there were going to be any time in the crate. I'm like,
Yep.
well.
I
And
experience that here now.
yeah,
Like,
no.
and I'm like, I'm sorry, but controlled structure is important to dogs. I'm going to do what's right for her.
Mhm.
And if I'm not right for you, I'm not right for you.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest, from a business perspective, the way we ran our daycare was not financially feasible. It was great
Right.
for the dogs.
How many people did you have per dog?
So we
Dog
had,
I would say 5 per person.
yeah, we had
Max.
5 per person
Max.
max. Yep.
Max.
So
Yeah.
if you happen to have a play group of 10, there was 2 people. but we also had two people if we had a play group of 8 or 6.
Yeah.
And our play groups were very dependent on the dog's play style and temperament and all of those things. So unfortunately, yeah, the way we ran our daycare, and I'm gonna that's why I'm gonna be honest about it, financially was not good for the business on the business end. But on the part of our clients that came to us, it was very good for their dogs
Mm-hmm.
because they got some good training, they got some good playtime, they got some healthy boundaries. They were not tired. They got breaks during the day, all those things. But it was very 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 difficult to do that. Um, because you only could take a certain amount of dogs because
Mm-hmm.
because of your staffing. And yeah, and I you know, we didn't change that at all. We stay pretty strict to that. So, and if you think about it, if you're only taking 10 or 20 or 30 dogs in a daycare with 3 or 4 staff people, because we had to have shifts too, so that the people didn't get our people weren't getting tired, and the dogs were getting out and all that. So we had at any given time three people working daycare, and so just very small groups. So
Yeah. And
it
I
was.
will tell you, like, to me, it's max of 5 dogs per person,
Yeah.
tops. And if that doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. And there are some dogs that we teach tolerance to, being around other dogs and being okay with interacting with the other person. And those dogs, like, there are some dogs that just can't be with other dogs
Right.
close to the yard. And that's okay. It's like, can you be in the presence of another dog without
Right.
being an idiot? Well, then, or having big feelings about it, well, then that's what it was. That's
Right.
what it is. Like, I'm not going to push your dog past threshold. It's just not who I am. I don't believe in doing that. I've done it. It doesn't work. It's not favorable to anybody. And it's just not fair, right? In the end.
Yeah, and I would say that um it's not fair, and the dogs aren't really getting much out of it. So you have to understand why the daycares do it the way they do it, right? They have a lot of dogs, and they try to screen them. But no matter what, you can have the nicest dog, and your dog may decide that they don't like some another dog in daycare. And if you have a dog fight, and I've known places, in this area and other areas where there's been massive dog fights, and a lot of and some of our clients that go elsewhere. So it's daycare is fine depending on how it's run and how it was set up. But unfortunately, like I said, for the from a business perspective, it's not very you don't make a lot of money doing it that way. Just don't.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't have anything against daycare if it's done well, but it's just not
Yes.
done well. And
No.
I get it. Financially, it's not feasible to do it well. But, and I'm not naming names. I don't want to do that, but I know some around here, like 50 to 70 dogs in a day.
I
50 to
couldn't
70 dogs.
imagine.
Now, if I told you, oh yeah, we have between 50 and 70 dogs, would you ever send your dog there?
No.
No.
Like,
No way.
that's crazy. That's like dog park on
And out,
crack.
and out at a time. Like,
Yeah.
All of
Right.
that is
them.
like so like unhealthy on
Right.
all levels,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's just so unhealthy. And I guess, and I'm not saying like it can't be done like everybody else is saying. It can be done, but you have to have the proper people in place.
Mhm. And
And
space.
those people, yes, space, and you have to recognize when the dog is overwhelmed or needs a break and so forth, and step in on behalf of the dog. Like, even me, like me personally, everybody's like, oh, look, there's uh even me, like, I'm comfortable with 8 to 10 dogs, provided they're okay with each other.
Right.
But that's not typical.
Right.
Like, the dogs I'm seeing nowadays have more issues with other dogs or have
Yes.
certain behavioral
Absolutely.
issues. And I'm not sure why. Like, I've looked this up. Like, what does that mean? Could it be breeding? Could it be like whatever it is? It is, right?
Yeah.
It's just,
But it is true. We are seeing a lot more dogs with a lot more. And I was having that conversation with somebody. Who was it?
It was me.
It was you. Yeah, I was like, because I was like, wait, I just was talking about that. Yeah, you're just seeing more like because Lisa and I used to do a lot of play groups and things like that, which, that was a long time ago, and we were quite a bit younger, so it was not that scary. But
Now we're older, our
now
bones are getting,
we can't move
we
that
really
fast
can't get
anymore.
that fast.
Uh, but but yeah, there are more dogs with like issues.
Yep.
A lot more. We are getting so many more, and I think, and I wonder, going back, if it's the chicken or the egg thing, but I wonder if some of these people who are doing all this, because I see a lot of in-home private training, a lot of it, tons of it. So these dogs aren't getting out in the world at all. They're just doing in-home privates, which is fine and is convenient for the handler. But the dog is missing a whole lot of social time. And then, and this is where we're back to the topic, like who's taking care of your dogs. At some boarding facilities, the dogs are allowed to be bullied and all that. And then in some places, the boarding trains, especially if there's a dog with some reactivity, they usually slap a shock collar on them. And if they think about going to the other dog, they correct the dog with the electric stimulation. And then the dog makes that association that the presence of the dogs um is
Right.
really bad. Now it's even worse. And then I think Joanne said it. It's like then at home people don't keep up with it. They don't do their homework. They don't back it up. So then now you've got a dog that's even worse. And then when you send them away, and many people will tell you that, right?
Well, I'll tell you this. So in my neck of the woods where I'm at, like I am big on doing in-home privates to help people understand stuff
Yeah,
because I think sometimes classes can be overwhelming, and I think
sure,
it's very relative.
absolutely.
I
It
think it's
does.
relative to the individual, right?
Right.
If you realize, hey, this is a lot of like sensory input for me, I can't manage
Mhm.
everything. Well, then I'm like, have you considered doing a private? And a majority of the people want to do a private first to
Yeah.
assess what's happening. But then my goal is to get them into a class to help them
Right.
with
Right.
situations of like life, right? Because that's what life is like.
Right.
Life is not going to like adjust to where you're at in your time, right?
Right.
And
Agreed.
yeah,
100%. 100%.
and to me it's like that's how I handle my privates. I'm like, my goal is to start there, but we end up in a class situation to help you proof
Right.
the
But
behaviors,
you're the exception, not the rule.
right? Well,
Because that is true. Some dogs, it's better for them to start at home with some private, some skills, and then you can get them into a class when they're able to handle it. And that's a way to do it because they're still getting that. But what people are having, they get the in-home training. The dogs they improve at home, and then the people then just don't follow up and go on and do back to Deb's thing. They don't do what you tell them, which is go um, to a class because they need to.
Yeah, I think sometimes too it's hard depending on where you're at, right? Because some of the training classes don't have the space. Like
Yeah, well, yeah, there's
so.
that.
Yeah, I did a private. Yes, I'd like to get better, but your facility can fit 8 dogs comfortably in a class. I don't with 6 feet in between them. That's not a good environment either. So it's sort of like giving people some of the benefit of the doubt. I mean,
well,
it's hard.
but I think it also depends on the individual, like the
Yeah.
individual trainer,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
You have to be savvy of to know where that individual dog will best, and handler team
Yep.
best thrive, right?
Yep.
If it's in an individual independent like one-on-one situation, then great. But if you were like, this dog is like way over threshold even just with me approaching, classes are not going to be of benefit to you to get a hold of this, right?
Right.
And I think that like this is where as trainers we have to be better to understand and
Yep.
cater
Yep.
to our clients. Like this is like it's huge.
Because our classes, yeah, and Joanne's right. Like our classes are always full, which is great. But yes, if you're looking for a class, but that's again goes back to we offer them. We can do a private with you until a class
Mhm.
spot opens up, right? The goal always is to go and uh, is to go and be in a social setting. But I think more and more people are choosing just to do an in-home training all the time, and then the dogs aren't getting out, they don't know how to behave around other dogs, and when they get out around the other dogs, they're so excited, whether it's happy, it just it's very challenging. And also, the other thing too is, and again, it goes back, like, who's watching your dog, like, who, at a board and train or a daycare, what is your dog experiencing, and that they're gonna, that how are they gonna, um, how are they treating your dog, right? Because then you would have, usually you want to look for things that, um, and I'm going to give you a story about, I took my dog to a daycare place a long time ago, um, and he was a nice dog, really good dog. Um, and one day I went to reach over the dog's head to get something, and the dog cowered, and I'm like, that was a new behavior that he's never experienced, that I've never seen. So that gave me a lot of information about what was going on at that daycare.
Yep.
So he's never, like, he never did that. Kaiser was pretty, I could do anything to him, but that was a red flag right there. If your dog is, that's why it's like, it's important. Like, if the dog comes home and goes to sleep and you don't see him again, you might miss some of those things. But I remember I was reaching over to grab something and he cowered, and I'm like, never saw that before. So you can just guess what was happening, like a, new thing. Um, so I did ask, like, the facility. I said, "Hey, my dog cowered." I go, Do they get, you know, does anybody hit them? Well, we do correct them if they blah 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 blah. Now, mind you, when I first asked before I took my dog there, I asked, "How do you handle this and this and this and that?" So they were not honest about it. So that's where, I we one of the things you want to do is that they should let you come and check out their facility. They should let you come up and check it, or if they have cameras, you should be able to take a sneak peek at what's going on. If there's nothing to hide, then there's no reason. Like, we was it a little inconvenient when we used to have people come to check our daycare out? It was kind of a pain because all the dogs would run up to the gate and all this stuff. But I still felt more comfortable, and, like, at least, and going back to Lisa's point, then you're going to get the clients that are going to understand what the clients you want, instead of
Mhm.
just people who just want to drop off the dog and all that stuff. So, those are some things that you need to look for. And then for those people, and then, they should give you recommendation or referral or recommendation, like, people, you should be able to reach out to other, and I know there's a whole legal thing about it, but you should be able to reach out to say, hey, because we had a few clients that would say, would you be willing to, if they emailed you, could you give them information about us and how we treat your dog and all that stuff, so that they would have a referral, so they're not just saying, yeah, they're great, and this person says, yeah, like the testimonials on the websites. I know it's a good idea to put them, but I'm very mind. I don't really take that. I take that with a grain of salt, because you could have just had somebody.
Well, and you get to say what you wanted to say. I'm not putting bad stuff on my website. but you
Right.
know, that's where social media and Yelp and those other types of things, right? You can't take those down. So that's a place to start anyway, right? And if there's one bad one to five good ones, like, right, if there's
Yeah,
three bad
sure.
ones to 12 good ones, that's when you kind of start to worry. Like, everyone can have a bad experience and bad
Sure.
mouth. But,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
I sent mine back in my 20s when I was first working for somebody. I got a discount to send my dogs to daycare, and all the time. And I worked there. So, oh, yeah, they did great today. They had fun. Like, when a friend of mine lost her job, she started working there to kind of, like, till she found another job. So she was working there temporarily. She said, your dogs hate it here, right? And I was like, what? She goes, yeah. She said, your border collie hides under the chair all day. Your Doberman sits in the corner by his leash and guards the leashes. She said, The other two are all right. They kind of play ball and roam around. She goes, but two of them are not having a good time. And I said, well, that's funny because I ask all the time how they do. Well, then I found out, well, what
It's a
happened
money
was,
issue. It's a
yeah,
money thing. Let's be honest about it. It's a money thing. And it's a money thing with boarding. It's a money thing. I'll
Hmm.
tell you, like, I'm going to be quite the butthole right now, but I will not go out of town and not trust somebody to like trust my dogs to go somewhere else. I will trust a friend to come stay with my dogs because to me, it is like critical that they get a good
hmm
experience. And not everybody reads dogs. I mean, this is what we go through, like, as trainers and as like regular individuals. And what we try to do as our job is to help people educate them on how to like read body language, right? And the truth of the matter is that, like, in a daycare setting or boarding setting, it's not the same. Like, I am super critical. I do extremely limited boarding because the dogs spend whole time in my home. I don't want them to be outside anywhere else other than in my home where I can supervise them. To me, that's critical. Like,
Yeah.
I'm responsible. I'm claiming responsibility for that individual, that being.
Mhm.
And to me, that's so much more important. And if I need to know, does your dog eat? Is it pooping? Is it peeing?
Yeah.
Is it okay with other dogs? It is stressed. To me, that's critical.
Right.
Like, and I would want to know that for my own dogs, let alone anybody else who entrusts me with theirs. So
So, Joanne, what ended up happening with your dog? Did you confront them about it, or what did you?
So I asked the staff, and they said, we're not allowed to tell you anything bad that happens. They said, if anything
No
bad
way.
happens, if somebody gets bit, if there's a scab, if somebody's a fight, dog's not having good. The owner said, you don't tell anybody about anything bad. Every dog had a great day. That's it.
yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, thanks. My dogs aren't coming to daycare anymore. But
Wow.
yeah. I mean, and that was 20 years ago. So now it's
With
crazy.
everything popping up, all the board and trains,
Right.
and that's the other thing. It's like board and trains. Like, to me, it's like I would prefer a dog to grow up in or be board and trained in a home setting. And this is where I have many conflicts, right? And this is what makes me a butthead, but whatever. It is
It's
what it
okay.
is. But like, I can't. Like, I need to know the dogs are okay. I
Yeah.
need to know, I need to have hands on. It is critical to me. And like, if a dog is staying in a facility, how do you know that they've learned home behaviors? Like,
Right. Well, yeah, right. Because I mean, I don't. I used to do a lot more in-home boarding. I don't as much anymore.
right.
I'll do it for like my handsome prince that Joanne has. He- he's my he can stay at my house because he's a perfect gentleman at my house. Well, with me and not you.
He gets the shot collar out and doesn't tell me. That's why.
So, he's like, I think he thinks maybe he's staying. I don't know. But he goes, I'll be good. No, but he's a very good boy. But I also know what to look for. I don't let him
Right.
get all crazy and blah blah blah. But so Michelle has a really a good idea, and we were going to actually talk about that. What are some of the questions to ask when you're trying to get a pet sitter? Well, Michelle, the first thing I would want to ask is, you know, how long have they been doing it? How many regular clients do they have? Because here, that's a big thing, right? Usually a very good pet sitter is busy a lot. Like they have regular customers that they work with all the time. If they have a lot of new customers, that's quite like how many uh long-term customers have you had, right? Is one of my first questions. Uh because that matters a lot. I was like, I'm just getting started. I'm like, see you later, because can't do it. How many long-term customers do you have? Um, so
I,
that's
I would ask about like what are your references? What's your
Right.
worst?
That
What was your hardest client and how did you handle it?
right.
Mhm.
And
Right.
references are important.
Yep.
If they cannot come up with references, don't do it, man. Just don't. If they cannot come up with at least 3 to 4 people that you can call, that you can say, "Hey, I'm thinking of using Fluffy, Joe Sitter's business, and I want to leave my dogs. What was your experience?" If they cannot come up with a group of people to give you those, don't do it. It's just don't do it.
I also think what's critical too, sorry, Joanne, I thought you were
Right.
going to say something, but
Right.
I also think it's critical to have, like to me, my priority is in home first, or well, first at the person's home. If I can't do a boarding, right? If I need to have boarding, can you do it at my home? If not, can
Mhm.
you do it at your home? And then, like, what if it's at your home? Where are the dogs placed in
Right,
your?
right.
Because that's critical. Like, those things. Like, if I can't have somebody who comes to my home or can deal with my dogs, like, where are you at? And what is the schedule like? Do you stay there? Do
Right.
you come and go? How frequently? What's the
Mhm.
whole deal look like? Those are things we don't think about, right? And to me, that's critical.
Yep. What's your routine? I go this, and you need to be also very clear about what you want for your dogs. I want you to stay here overnight. I need you to, they need to go out every 4 or 5 hours. You need to kind of ask those questions. You need to also be clear about what your dog's needs are, so that you can find the right person. Because that's a lot of people are just sometimes, because I know we've all been through it. We're like trying to find somebody to watch our dogs, and we just hope to God that we make the right choice. But that's why it's like trying to find somebody that's. And then the other thing I would do is do a test run.
Yep.
Do an overnight. Like maybe go away if you're like going overnight or going away. Do like a test run and overnight, and kind of see how the dogs do, how everything goes before you go on the long trip to wherever you're gonna go.
Yeah, and maybe it's just me because did have to travel a bit this spring.
Hmm.
I I'm going to tell you what, unless you have done a pet sitting job for someone that I know that can vouch for you, I'm not buying you. I'm not, because it didn't work for me. It was, and what do? Right? I can't cancel my trip. So one of it wasn't vacation, right? I had a job that I had to go to
Right,
out of
right.
town. There's no way I can come back or do anything. And it was last minute stuff, and it was awful. And I was worried the whole time. Um, and I in that moment I did choose a boarding kennel.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Now I will tell you, this was it for me, right? So it ended up on one of the trips, they were just stopping by a couple times a day to let my dogs out. Like, and when I think about that, my dogs were all right, they were safe, it was okay, but emotionally I don't think that was fair, right? Because they're like, what
Especially
is
for the especially for the Vizsla. Yeesh.
yeah. So, and I think boarding kennels are getting a little better if you ask around. So
Yes.
the one that I used, I did not tour it. However, I have been referring clients there based on other people's recommendations. So the lady who runs it's a vet tech. So she has medical experience. She understands, what a poo
Yeah.
is supposed to look like and what happens if a dog needs medication. They said, we'll feed whatever you want. We have a fridge because I feed raw food. So they were like, not a problem. Don't worry about it. Just bring your stuff labeled, so that we know who gets what. You sign this sheet if you want them to go into a regular play group or if you want them to be by themselves. And I was like, nope, they will be like my 3 could go out together and then the Doberman can go out by himself. But, you
Poor
know,
him.
and they were kind, yeah, they were kind to point out, they don't get out any less than the dogs that go into playgroup. They just go into a place by themselves. So they still get out multiple times a day, no extra charge. And the reason why I really liked them was because she will take issue dogs. She'll take separation anxiety dogs. She'll take aggressive dogs. She'll take, like, I don't advertise that for them. But when a client with a more difficult dog asks me, I drove almost 40 minutes out of town to get to this kennel.
Yeah.
And we have another one that's just starting. And see, this is where I'm saying the world is changing. So she is new. She said, I've always wanted to do this. She's retired. And so, I mean, not old, like not 65 retired, but she's, had a job and decided this is what I want to do. She said, I would bring the dogs in, through the front and they kind of walk the galley. She goes, I don't like it. She goes, it riled everyone up too much. It was bad. She said, so now I take them around back and I'll put them in the outside kennel so that they don't have to, like, while everyone else is inside. I make sure everyone's inside. So when they come in, they don't see the other dogs. And then there's solid panels between all the kennel runs. So you don't have a strange dog like staring at you, so they get their own thing.
Right.
So yes. But the first kennel I was talking about, one of the things was a lot of the dogs that came out of there, even with stress and issues, didn't come home with diarrhea. And to me, that's huge.
Yeah, but so do you know that there are kennels that'll like give them pumpkin to help them not have diarrhea?
See,
Do you
that's
know
nice.
that?
I didn't, but
Yeah, but what if you have a dog who's allergic to it?
and that's it. And that's where
Yeah.
I think, being a vet tech, right, understanding how critical that could be to give a dog something that you weren't approving
That
of.
was not in their diet. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. It's like not all places are like that. They're going to do what they think.
For sure.
There are places that'll give peanut butter Kongs, and if your dog has allergies to that, that can be potentially a problem,
Yes.
right? Or they'll do certain things. But the other thing too is like, what about the quality of the kennel? The kennel, like, do you know that there are certain measures that they have to take depending on where they're at? Like the whole, like with air quality, it's a thing. Like
Yeah.
even in rescues, they have certain ventilation systems in certain rooms to prevent spread of disease.
Right.
Your dog has more risk, faces
Yep.
more risk in a kennel situation because of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying anything good or bad. It's just information to consider
Yep.
when you're thinking about like boarding a dog or who's going to care for your dog and so forth. This is why I recommend check it out. Like, go see what's happening. Are these dogs kept in kennels? Are they in a separate area that has separate ventilation based upon or specific ventilation? Because that's a thing. It's huge,
And,
right?
and also just asking, like, so, and also a lot of places nowadays have videos where you can check in on your dog and
Yep.
see and all that, which to me that would be very comforting to have a place that has that. I realize for some of the places that's prohibitive from a cost perspective,
Yeah.
but
But with Ring and all the different things, yeah, it shouldn't be, right? It doesn't make, I mean, I have it around my house. It's not difficult to
Right.
set that up.
Well, yeah, me too. Yeah, so some people will go far, but finding places to board, so asking the right questions, Mr. A pet sitter. Also, the other thing I forgot, for somebody to come into your house, ideally you want them to be insured.
Yep.
They should be insured because the other thing aside from your dogs, your stuff, right? You're letting somebody in your home. So you should make sure that they are absolutely have some kind of insurance policy. And you definitely want to call the insurance policy and make sure it's still in effect when they give you that insurance information, because that happens too.
Yeah.
So you
Business liability, Tony. Tony's asking what kind of insurance?
Yeah,
Liability insurance.
liability, business liability insurance, right?
Yeah.
Jive, I know you're hungry. So yeah, liability insurance, they should have it, and you should definitely call and make sure they have it, that it's up to date. I know it sounds terrible, but if Lord forbid something happens, you want to make sure you have some kind of recourse. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? When you leave your dogs, you want to make sure that, I mean, anyone can have an accident, anything can happen, right? But you want to make sure you do as much of your home. Nobody's perfect. Nobody, I mean, you hear a lot of stories about people who've left their dogs and something happened and all those kind of things. And I know most dog people try to get somebody to stay at the house, and I know that's hard because the people who are really good are booked you know, pretty far out, right? I mean, they're just,
Yeah.
you
Um,
know, booked.
one other thing that I think it's important to mention too, and it's only because Tony asked that other question. She made a comment earlier. So I used to board Gigi when she was young, and she'd watch the video stream of her just staring at the door the whole time with people walking past her and not even giving her a pet, right? And so it's actually really funny because when I read that, I'm like, don't walk by and pet my dog. Like, leave my dog alone. Do you know what I mean? And so, not that I'm right or Tony's right. Like, I think we both have certain things, right? But I have a dog who, one of
No,
mine,
no,
right?
no.
Well, two of them. Bam doesn't care about people, and Roscoe's a little nervous. So it's like, you know, when I leave them in boarding for me, I want to know they're safe, secure, somebody has eyes on them, they're clean, they're fed, right? That's what I want to know. And I think there are kennels, right, that would absolutely cater to like, oh, I sit in the kennel with them for a little while and make sure everybody gets special time each day. And, I pet them and love on them. And so those exist too. So that might not be my first choice for some of my dogs because I think sometimes, well, with some of
No.
those people, like that's their joy. That's what they want to do is love on the dogs and enjoy the dogs every day while they're in boarding. And it's like, I get that, but some of mine might not enjoy that.
Right.
Right? Where, good Lord, you take the golden retriever, right? Gigi's like, why are you touching me? So,
That would be Tango too.
yeah, right?
But it goes back to like being able, I mean, let's be honest, like a lot of this in working with animals has to go
No.
back to reading a dog.
No,
Know
no,
what the dog is saying. Are you interpreting it based upon your own ego? Are you interpreting it based upon your own dog? Like, that's what we come down to, right? And
yeah,
it
right?
is irrelevant. It's irrelevant in what capacity that you are working in, right? Like, and to me, I have a higher expectation. If you say you're a trainer, well, you better understand how to read a dog if you're going to freaking deal with it, right? And to me, that's important. But at the same time, it's like you have to understand how to read a dog. When is the dog okay with being touched? When is it isn't? Like, we go back to like fight, flee, freeze, fawn, fidget, all of the F's, right? Can you read the difference? Like when a dog says, okay, pet my belly, or okay, I guess you can pet my belly, there's a difference. Like, you need to be good at reading body language if you're working in the dog world. It's just my thing,
Yeah.
you know.
You're on mute.
Oh, oops.
So Tony, she was in a large group in a daycare area. Yeah, probably she wasn't a concern for them. They were probably watching dogs that were concerning. I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
right.
so so they might have been or you know, to be honest, it is a daunting job.
It is.
And there's I think there's a um higher level of burnout in some of those
I
works.
know.
And some people, they're for a lot of these people, it's a kid, right?
Yeah.
Just doing what they have to do
Well,
to.
let's be honest. It's not, in order to pay a professional to do it, you're paying twice
Oh
as
yeah.
much as somebody who's coming out to deal with it, right?
Well,
And
yeah,
so,
and that's why our daycare wasn't lucrative. Not
right,
that I paid that much,
right,
but I paid a lot more than the
yep,
most. And most of our workers were older. They
right.
were not kids; they were older. So yeah, you had to pay them better. So again, another reason why it wasn't lucrative.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's why, honestly, like I'm not a daycare. I do day school
Right.
because to me, training it's a thing. Like there are other things that are considerate that we do, like going for walks and playing with other dogs and so forth. But we do more than just that. It's not just playing with each other, right?
Right. Right.
Because there's so much more to that in a life skill.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I decided to go back to do some day training because that's better. The dogs get work, they get trained, they get some socials time, but the crux of what they do is learning and
Yep.
training and things like that. So I've um so I really find that finding a good you know the big concern, and for the board and trains, a lot of you really need to ask. um Oops, I'm not sure how that
Sorry.
happened. um,
Really.
a lot of people with the board and trains, the majority, and I'm not saying all, but the majority of them are e-collar training.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. That's what they do because that's how they get the fast results.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things
And
that
and the thing is like it doesn't like it's not that e-colors don't work. They do. The issue is that there are so many, there's just like with any kind of training, there's a timing issue, and the risk reward is so much more challenging with e-collar training versus anything else, right? Like you don't know where the dog's mental state is. Like I had a client who had a 6-month-old dog who wanted immediate results, and I'm like, I can't do that, and went to e-collar training. I don't know how the dog is doing, but my program and the way I work didn't fit the need of them. And that's okay, right? But I'm not willing to bend and adjust what we do and who we are to cater to that
mm,
because I don't feel that's the purpose, right? Like that's not my go-to. My go-to is like help teach them the behavior and what they need to do. You need to support it. Just like raising a kid. I mean, corporal punishment is frowned upon even with children, right? Right now.
yeah,
So like, it's a sentient being still.
Yeah.
So
so
Well,
it's
and
one of those.
I look at it like this, right? I am not, I mean, I feel like I have pretty decent timing. I can't get the clicker right 100% of the time.
probably
I'll be damned if I'm
right?
going to push a button and shock a dog with like, oops, sorry, that was a little quick, or that was a little,
Yeah,
Whoops. Yeah.
oops,
And
sorry.
you have to
but
know the emotion of the dog when you're doing
Right.
it, right?
right.
It's so challenging. And not saying that I don't know people who are super talented in doing it. That's great, but it's not like
I know. Shh. We're going to bark at Nancy's dogs. Yeah. I don't know people that are super talented in doing it.
it's few and far between that are
Right.
doing it
I mean, I know
effectively
people
and
can do it
fairly
and
and
get
fairly.
success. Yeah. But I don't know that they're talented in it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys, one of the things is when you're looking at a board and trade, hopefully none of you that watch us are, you need to ask and you need to see. And that's where I definitely, the references are going to be important. And also, it's really the and we talked about it as we started. Nobody can guarantee anything.
mm-mm.
No.
So right there, if they're guaranteeing anything, right there, I I move on, right? And then you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose, or why do I want to send my dog away for however long it is, um and stay overnight and be away from home to be trained by someone else? I think day school, I have found that that has been the most efficient and effective way of doing it, where the dog, you drop them off in the morning, they get training during the day, and they go home to their home in the evening, and then you get to go over what they've learned, so that they get. I have found that that has been the most. If you need help and you need to, because a lot of people, the reason they send them is there's a time issue, they don't have time. If you need help and you need to send your dog to a day training program, I have found that that is, to me, by far and away been the most efficient. I've done all of the above. I've not done board. We did maybe a couple of board and trains, but the way, we're positive trainers. So, and we, back in the day we used to do that, but it was very, very challenging for people to comply and all that other stuff. So that's why we stopped
Well,
doing it.
well, I will tell you, I do puppies, but if you tell me about a teenage dog, anything 6 months and above, I'm like, we need to talk on an individual basis to help you understand what you need to do at home because I can train the dog in my home. However, my home is not your home, right? But as a puppy, it's much easier to set behaviors
Right.
because they're more pliable than any other time in their lives. When they become teenagers, it's much more of an up in the air. I have big feelings, so I don't know if I'm going to do that. And that's when most dogs get are returned or given up at that time, right? Which sucks because honestly, it's a commitment. And I will tell you honestly, like if my pappy aunt were as cute as he was, I'd be like, this is stupid. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? I love him. But at the same time, I'm like, I say, come. He looks at me. He's like, yeah, no. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I
I'm
want
going to
to
Bam's 5,
grab
and I
your
still
ear,
have
you by
those
your
thoughts.
ears. What's
Yeah.
that?
I said Bam's 5, and I still have those thoughts.
Yes.
Right? But the whole point is like it's a commitment, it's a relationship that
Yep.
we enter into, right?
Yeah.
Regardless.
No, Mambo is 10 months old.
Yeah.
So, yay for me.
That's
Stop
hard.
doing that. What? Why? I'm like, oh my God. So,
Right?
yes.
And that's the thing. It's like
Yeah.
every time we take on a dog, we're like, okay, I have to give myself a pep talk. I'm like, okay, it's a puppy. It's going to be amazing. Then it's going to start at a teenager. Am I okay with this? Because it's hard. Like I don't have the patience or time sometimes, and I have to remind myself of that.
And I
Like,
think, and going back to what Lisa said, when they're like adolescents, is when most people send those dogs to
yes,
board and train facilities because they become so challenging to deal with,
right.
and so they think that they're just bad dogs. It's like no, they're just all,
Developing.
yeah. And so, and so again, there's nothing wrong with if you have a good daycare, send them a half a day, and really check how they work their also, the other question to ask if you're sending them to a facility is is your facility heated and air conditioned? I know
Yep.
that sounds stupid, but that is a really valid question because I cannot tell you how many I've heard that some dogs have died of heat exhaustion because there was not air conditioning or it was broken or whatever, or those places that have outside where the dog spent all day outside,
Yep.
right? So that matters. Ask about their environmental controls, right?
Yep.
Ask,
And how big their space is. And a big one for me, especially if I have a young dog, right? What's your method for getting them out to potty?
right,
Don't tell me you keep the mop bucket in the corner and just mop it up every time they pee because that's terrible.
right. Yeah, well, how do you get them outside? Do you take them outside? Do they go in the runs? All of those things, because all of those things, good or bad, they're going to affect your dog, right?
Yep.
If your dog, so, um, what's like Lisa said, do you have a system? What happens if the dog gets sick? How do you handle that? Do you go to what do you do? You reach out to our vet? Do you have a vet that you take them to? And who is that vet? And what do you do? And how you get obviously get a hold. There's
Well,
emergency contacts and all that, but
and
definitely
it's
have those.
and it's not unheard of like dogs getting ill or getting sick and so forth. And does that place reach out to you when the dog gets sick? Because they should. They
Right.
should be reaching out to you, say, hey, your dog is not coughing, blah, blah, blah. Like when I've taken dogs in, I'm like, okay. And I had a lady who wanted me to watch her dogs, and I did. Like she's not what I would like a regular client, but it wasn't. I knew her, and her dog was older, and I knew the risk, right? And he started to go into congestive heart failure
Hmm.
in my care. And I was like, I called her right away. I'm like, and I sent a video of him, what he looked like when he started like having the hard time breathing. And she's like, you need to get him to the vet. And so I did. But I called the lady. I'm like, look, I need to rush him to the vet, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, he passed away. It was crushing. Like, what do they do with that? Do they do will they contact you to determine what you want to do?
Mhm.
And honestly, I was like devastated, and I was it was very difficult at that time because I'd lost several dogs of my own, so I was highly sensitive to it. Like,
Mhm.
you know,
But a lot of people, if like if you're leaving someone in the care with the care of your old dog, that's a risk you take, and you
absolutely,
just leave everything arranged so that they can you know do the best thing for the dog, right? But those are all really important questions. And I know, I'll be honest, and if any organization has a problem with you asking all these questions, move on.
Bye.
Yep.
Move
Yep.
on.
And I would ask, what does your training look like? Can I observe you working with another dog? And if, that's
Right.
proprietary
Yep.
information. Okay, thanks. Bye. I'll give my money to somebody who's open and honest.
And I
Right.
think everybody, all of us three, allow people to come and watch
Yep,
how we train and
always.
work with
Yep.
dogs. Yeah, 100%.
Always,
Like, come
always.
see what I do, how I work,
Yep.
you know. But
Right. Yep, that we do. People come. We always invite people come and check it out. Come and see what we do. You're welcome to come anytime. To see what you. And then we allow them to go observe classes and what. Because everybody's like, oh, they're going to take away our secrets. I go, what secrets? Those secrets. Just they're not going to go. They're not going to come and be at your facility for a while, and then they're going to end up setting up a business next to yours. That's not going to happen. So
right.
it's just we always invite people, come and check it out, come and see what you come and ask questions. All kinds of really check us out, like, so that way, because then that's how you can become a real partner with the client, right? Because then they know what you're about, what they get, what you're about, and it just makes things easier. It's much more challenging when people are just like, oh, just fix it, make it
Right.
stop, and they don't care how you do it. They should care how you do it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, and some people, the dog is just like another, I don't know.
It's another check.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, right? It's terrible. But I think that we all share the same, and that's why we do this, right? We all share the same goals and ideals in terms of working with dogs, right? Like we are truly in this for the dog, and we are resources for the owners to help them uh, evolve with their dogs.
Right.
Right. And like, to me, nobody's going to give you better advice than your own dog community.
Yep.
Right. Or other dog owners, even if it's just, somebody who just has a pet and loves their dog. But that is one of the great things social media gives us now. Make a public post and say, hey, has anyone had experience with blah, blah, blah daycare or blah, blah, blah kennel or blah, blah, blah pet sitter, right? Just make a public post on Facebook. Does anybody know about this? And if nobody gets back to you, then you're like, huh, okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of information right there.
Well, right. Or if somebody's like, if you get 50-50, maybe pass on that. If you get, one bad one and everybody else is good, okay, maybe I'll move forward and go check that one out. So, again, I think the dog community is huge. So
Yeah. Yeah, Michelle. I
yeah.
had for insurance reasons. Bull. Yep.
Well,
Well,
it
for those of
is.
you who can't see, she said, I had kennels tell me I can't see the
Yeah.
kennel area for insurance reasons. Bye
Right.
bye. And I was like, yep.
Which is right. No way.
Yeah, but you can see you could see the kennels without actually interacting with the dogs. So I think the
Right.
insurance question comes in, like, about you being exposed to the dogs that are questionable if they're dealing with that. I
Mhm.
get that, but
But you
you
can
can still see
right.
areas of the dogs where they're housed if they're out and about, right?
Or hey,
Absolutely.
take your phone in the back and give me a video real quick so I can see it on
Yep.
my phone and you go back there.
Sure. Right.
Welcome.
So don't what we're trying to give you advice is, don't be afraid to really push and ask and get until you're satisfied with the answer. And that's why when look for a dog sitter when you don't need one.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's just easier because then you can kind of sort it and all that. I know sometimes emergencies happen, and I'm in that same position right now. Like right now, the only one I would take my dogs to Joanne's or Lisa's, but it would be in a dire emergency to be able to do that. And Joanne would have a hard time because her house is full and Lisa's too. But you know what I mean? It's hard to find people that are going to
Yep.
take care of your dogs and that you trust that they're going to be loved and not loved, but at least cared for in a
Kept
way
safe,
that
right?
and just kept safe and cared for, really, because
Your
that's all you
shepherd would
need.
be traumatized, but otherwise it'd be fine.
Huh?
I said your shepherd would be traumatized, but otherwise it'd be fine.
Well, if you can't be out right here, yes.
Oh no, I just meant he's gonna be like, grrr, to the Doberman, and I'd be like, "This is my house." Sorry,
Yes, he would be.
long-standing joke.
He'd be very emotional. He'd have
Right.
big feelings about that. But yeah, it's one of the so it's like, don't be afraid to be an advocate and ask. And then again, for those of you who would consider a board and train, why are you needing it? The answer should be very compelling. Like, you really have to do it because I I can't physically, I'm physically ill. I can't, it has to be some big reason.
Yeah.
And then you definitely want, and there are not, again, there are some really good board and trains, but you're gonna have to really dig and look for those. They're gonna, and same with the daycares and um like Joanne said, social media is one is a good tool, right? Because you can ask, hey, how's this, how's that, right, to be able to help you with your dog, because those are all things that we might face. We might end up having to go to the hospital. We might need to be away, and our dogs might need to be have somebody else taking care of them. So you definitely want to look for a facility, a kennel, or a pet sitter when you don't need one,
Right.
right? And that's actually something I am in the process of starting to try to look for, on my own, somebody that's can come and stay at my house and take good care of my dogs while I'm gone, because I would like to go on a on a trip with my husband at some point. I
Would
think,
you?
yeah, because usually he stays home, but you know, at some point, if or something, Lord forbid, happens to him,
Yeah, right.
it'd be
Yeah.
probably nice. It'd be probably nice to have somebody that that you can call upon that can come and take care of your dogs, right? And right now, my dogs are all young, and they're not, not a lot of, you know, too many problems or issues. So it should be easy. But yeah, don't be afraid to ask those questions, right? But you know, and you should be able to stop and check it out and get referrals and call those referrals. Don't just get them and expect. And I know, like for us, when we used to give our referrals, we used to have to ask the people, hey, is it okay if we give them their email address so they
Hmm.
can reach out to you? So you have to very much clear it with that, but that's okay. Even if they can't come up with it right away, that they maybe can a bit later get that permission to be able to reach out to those folks, right? Because those are going to be their biggest, your biggest, and they should give you several, and then you can pick which ones arbitrarily to call, right? So anyway, I hope you found this helpful. Again, we are all in the same boat as dog parents, because we definitely want to make sure our dogs are taken care of. Because unfortunately, they can't come back and say so and so happened. They do sometimes, like Kaiser. When I reached over, he did tell me in that moment, something not good was happening there, right? But sometimes you don't see those things. Like in Joanne's case, dogs weren't having a good time, and there was no outward signs of it. They were just not having fun there. So,
Well,
and
poor
it's like,
Michelle.
huh?
I think poor Michelle has PTSD. She got her dog back with a chemical burn on its back.
With a
A
what?
what?
A chemical burn on her back.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Right. And so, it's like once that sort of stuff happens, it's like you never go back. You're like,
No.
never using a kennel again.
Right.
It's really hard to
Well,
try.
and that brings up a good thing, right? Like, what chemicals are they using
Yeah.
to clean the kennels, right? Like, I mean, it's a big deal. Like, to find the right kennel that's
Yep.
going to like care for you and your dogs, it's crazy.
Yep.
And like
Yeah.
Tony talked about dogs being intact, having the different vaccinations and so forth. Well, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion. But
Yeah. But yeah, no, and yeah, right, because that's the other problem, Tony. I have two intact dogs,
yep,
so
Yeah.
yep,
so that's a thing, and and but so yeah, definitely, and that's also what you want to ask. Do you take intact animals? How do you handle those things? Because usually those places that take intact animals are usually a little more savvy for the most
Mhm.
part, because they see that the importance of that. So
it is.
anyway, hopefully that you found this helpful. Good luck, and if you find anyone in our area, let us know, because I'd be interested in them too. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.